Fear is a universal emotion that everyone experiences at some point in their lives. But have you ever wondered why we get scared? Is it a survival instinct, a reaction to uncertainty, or perhaps something deeper? In this video, we'll dive into the science of fear, exploring why we feel it, how it works in our brain, and why it can sometimes control us. Let's uncover the mysteries behind this primal emotion. Fear begins in the brain, specifically in an area called the amygdala. This almond-shaped cluster of nuclei plays a key role in processing emotions, especially fear. When you encounter something scary, a shadow in the dark, a loud noise, or even a stressful thought, your brain triggers the amygdala, which immediately sends signals to the rest of the body to prepare for a fight-or-flight response. This response is part of our evolutionary survival mechanism, designed to protect us from danger. It increases our heart rate, makes us more alert, and floods the body with adrenaline, preparing us to either face the threat or escape from it. This reaction is automatic and happens in an instant, often before we even consciously realize what's happening. Interestingly, fear is not only triggered by real threats. Our brains can also create fear responses to perceived threats or imagined dangers. This is why we get scared in situations that aren't life-threatening, like during a scary movie or when thinking about an upcoming exam. The amygdala also interacts with the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and decision-making. This interaction determines whether we perceive a situation as truly dangerous or simply a false alarm. Sometimes our brains overreact, and fear becomes disproportionate to the situation. Understanding the biological basis of fear is crucial in managing it. While fear has a biological foundation, psychological factors play a major role in how we experience it. Our past experiences, beliefs, and even our imagination can influence what scares us. For example, someone who has had a traumatic experience with a dog might have a fear of dogs, even if the dog in question poses no actual threat. Another psychological factor is learned fear. Through a process called conditioning, we can develop fear responses to certain stimuli. One famous experiment by psychologist John Watson involved a baby, Albert, who developed a fear of white rats after they were paired with loud, frightening noises. Over time, Albert began to associate the rat with fear, even in the absence of the noise. This shows how fear can be learned, not just through direct experience but through association. Moreover, cognitive biases also shape our fears. We tend to fear things that are unfamiliar or uncertain, a phenomenon known as the fear of the unknown. Our brains are wired to pay more attention to potential threats, which makes us more likely to imagine worst-case scenarios, even when there is no immediate danger. Cultural influences also contribute to fear. Media, for instance, plays a significant role in shaping our perceptions of what is frightening. Horror films, for example, exploit the brain's natural fear responses to create a thrilling, albeit imaginary experience. Fear, at its core, is a survival mechanism. It's the body's way of protecting us from harm by prompting us to act quickly in the face of danger. The fight-or-flight response, triggered by fear, has been vital throughout human evolution. Take for instance the fear of heights. Our ancestors needed to be cautious around steep cliffs to avoid falling. The fear of snakes or spiders, both of which can be dangerous in the wild, also has evolutionary roots. These types of fears are hardwired into our brains because they served as crucial survival tools. However, while fear helps protect us from immediate threats, it can also make us more vulnerable to chronic stress and anxiety. In the modern world, we're no longer running from saber-toothed tigers, but our bodies still react as if we are. Fear can lead to stress responses that harm our health over time, contributing to conditions like hypertension, heart disease, and digestive problems. Interestingly, not all fears are related to survival. Some fears, like the fear of public speaking or failure, stem from social and psychological concerns rather than physical threats. These fears have evolved as part of our social development. In early human societies, being rejected or ostracized from the group could be fatal, so our brains developed a fear of social rejection. In today's world, these fears manifest as anxiety in social situations, job interviews, or academic performance. The challenge, then, is managing these fears. While fear is necessary for survival, it's important to recognize when it's out of proportion to the situation at hand. When we experience fear, our body undergoes several physiological changes. The first thing that happens is the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, often referred to as the fight-or-flight response. This causes a cascade of effects designed to prepare the body for action. Your heart rate increases, sending more blood to your muscles, making you ready to run or fight. At the same time, your pupils dilate, allowing more light to enter your eyes and improving vision. Your breath quickens, delivering more oxygen to your bloodstream, and your body starts to sweat, which helps cool you down during intense physical exertion. While these changes are helpful in acute situations, prolonged fear can take a toll on the body. Chronic fear, or anxiety, can lead to higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol, which over time can impair immune function, disrupt sleep, and contribute to weight gain. This is why managing fear and anxiety is so important for our long-term health. Interestingly, some people thrive under pressure. The phenomenon known as eustress is a positive form of stress that helps people perform better in high-stakes situations, such as exams or competitive sports. However, when fear becomes chronic, it shifts from being a helpful tool to a harmful force. Fear can be paralyzing, but it doesn't have to control us. Understanding fear is the first step toward managing it. Psychologists have developed several techniques for overcoming fear, ranging from mindfulness to exposure therapy. Mindfulness is one approach where individuals learn to observe their fear without judgment. By acknowledging the fear without letting it control their actions, people can reduce the intensity of the fear response. Mindfulness allows people to stay present and grounded, instead of being consumed by fear-driven thoughts. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is another technique used to treat phobias and anxiety disorders. CBT helps individuals identify and challenge irrational thoughts that contribute to their fears. For example, a person with a fear of flying may be guided through exercises that help them recognize that the likelihood of a crash is extremely low. Exposure therapy involves gradually confronting the feared object or situation in a safe, controlled environment. By slowly increasing exposure, individuals can desensitize their fear response, reducing its intensity over time. This method has been highly effective in treating phobias such as fear of heights or spiders. Another powerful technique is relaxation training, which teaches individuals to relax their bodies and minds when feeling anxious. Deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and guided imagery are all methods that help calm the nervous system and reduce fear. Finally, it's important to recognize that some level of fear is normal and healthy. Fear keeps us safe and alerts us to potential dangers. The goal isn't to eliminate fear entirely, but to learn to manage it so that it doesn't limit our lives. In conclusion, fear is far more than just a fleeting emotion or an inconvenient feeling. It is deeply embedded in our biology, psychology, and culture. As we've seen, fear has evolutionary roots that go back to our ancestors, and it serves a vital purpose: to protect us from threats. Without fear, we wouldn't have the quick reflexes and heightened senses that help us survive in dangerous situations. But in the modern world, fear is often not about life or death. It's more about navigating social challenges, facing uncertainty, and managing expectations. However, fear is not an emotion that we need to avoid or suppress. In fact, acknowledging fear is the first step in gaining control over it. When we face our fears head-on, we give ourselves the power to determine how we respond to them. It's this process of confronting and understanding our fears that allows us to grow and overcome the limitations they impose. For instance, mindfulness and cognitive behavioral techniques allow us to recognize irrational thoughts that fuel our fears, so we can break the cycle. Exposure therapy helps us confront the situations that cause anxiety, gradually making them less intimidating. Each of these strategies helps us redefine the narrative around fear, showing us that while fear is natural, it doesn't have to hold us back. Fear is a powerful tool when managed correctly. It signals danger, motivates us to protect ourselves, and helps us make decisions quickly when necessary. But it can also distort reality when it becomes overwhelming. Understanding fear, both its biological origins and its psychological effects, allows us to keep it in check, not allowing it to paralyze us or prevent us from living fully. So next time fear creeps in, remember, fear is a normal, healthy part of being human, but it's also something we can learn to manage. By educating ourselves about fear and embracing it, we can use it as a tool for growth, not a barrier to progress.